Bonjour et bienvenue à tous à cette audience du Comité de délégation pour la Ville d'Ottawa. Good afternoon, everyone, to this Committee of Adjustment hearing for Panel 1 for the urban area. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances and consents to sever. Our hearings are back to being in person. However, the committee can enable remote participation through video conferencing to anyone who may request that avenue for participation. You only need to speak with our committee staff in order to have that happen.
Okay.
We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public on the committee's website. My name is Anne Tremblay, and I'll be chairing today's hearings. And with me are my fellow panel members, starting on my right, Member Lecueillier, Member Haskin, Member Keklikan, and on video, we have Member Blatherwick. So in terms of the procedures, we have an agenda at the beginning, so that agenda really just reflects the order of the applications that have come in to the committee.
I'm going in the back. But
we do change things up a little bit on occasion, and we will be doing that. Not particularly in exactly that order. Okay, then just so everyone is aware, the panel members have reviewed all of the materials related to the applications that are before us today. So we get them in advance, we get a chance to review them. And then we even have a pre-meet prior to this hearing to ensure that we've received all of the written material on the proposal. So today we're really here to hear some oral submissions in addition to the written material we have on file. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property in question in order to have their application heard. So we don't have any issues today. All declarations of statutory notification have been submitted. So with that, in terms of the procedures, so there's a couple of ways this goes. We have some applications which we deem to be unopposed, and we deal with very, very quickly because there literally has been very little response to the application. There's been no concerns to the application. They're very straightforward in nature. Then when we hear applications, we can either ask just to go straight to questions, or we might ask for a full presentation. It is always the agent's prerogative, though, to do a presentation if they wish. There may be situations where we don't feel one. The committee may not feel it's necessary, but please don't hesitate to say, I'd like to do a presentation if that's something you want to do. So what we do is we start with the applicant. We get through the presentation if there is one. We'll get clarifying questions to staff, and we have planning staff, we have forestry staff. There's different departments that are available to us to ask for clarifying questions, essentially. And then after that, we go to the oral submissions. Once we've heard from everyone who has an interest in the application and wants to speak to the committee, then we go back to the applicant, and the applicant has an opportunity to recap, rebut at the very end. From there, the committee then will deliberate and decide whether or not we want to either grant the application, we can refuse the application, and in some cases, we reserve the application. And that's usually happens when we have an application that's fairly complex and where we've heard new evidence at the hearing. So in all cases, however, and within 10 days of this hearing, the Committee of Adjustment staff, the administration, will send the official written decision and the reasons for it to all parties and participants and anyone else who has requested a copy of that decision. So if you'd like to speak French, I noticed we had a submission that was in both languages for this hearing. So please feel free to speak French if you would like to. In terms of the items of business for the committee, we have no minutes before us and no withdrawals or adjournments. So I'm just going to turn to committee members to ensure we have a record of all declarations of conflict of interest for any of the applications before us today or any of the other applications before the other panels. All right, not seeing any, so there are no declarations of conflict of interest for the record. Okay, that said then, let's go straight to our unopposed applications. We have two. I don't need to see the agents or the applicants to come forward. We're simply going to read out the two applications that are unopposed and see whether or not anyone has any comments that is in the audience, whether here in person or online. So for application number 130 Glenora, and application number 235 3rd Avenue, is there anyone who has any comments or would like to address the committee on either one of those applications? Now's your chance. All right, we're not seeing anybody come forward, so I'm going to suggest that on number 1, then, members of the panel, all those in favor? All right, for the record, it's unanimously approved. And for number 4, members of the panel, all those in favor? All right, again, for the record, it is unanimously approved. Perfect. That now takes us to the 2 remaining items that we will hear today. Number 3 is where we'll start with 60 Pinehurst. I'm looking for Mr. Telfer. Good afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Paul Telfer. I'm the agent for 60 Pinehurst.
All right, thank you. We don't require a full presentation from you unless you'd like to give one, but we do have some questions for you.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to open it up then to the members of the panel for questions. Yes, go ahead, Member Lecueillier.
Hi there, it's Mr. Telfer. Great. Just curious on, so in your application, you noted that this is for at-home vehicle maintenance. Just curious of whether it's like a specific special vehicle and why that this is like, as a truck or something that is why this is necessary. And I'm also wondering if there is like a business that is being proposed in terms of like, will this become like a business? And so those are kind of 2 kind of questions. And then the other question I had was about neighbors. In your application, you mentioned that neighbors have concurred, but I didn't see any evidence of that. So if you could tell me a little bit about that consultation that may have taken place, that'd be great. Thank you.
The owner wishes to consider that this hoist is for a hobby, and he'll be treating his own vehicle. He's a mechanic, but he works in the armed forces as well. And as far as the neighbors are concerned, he contacted all the neighbors, and the adjoining properties, which have vegetation trees, they're either to be retained or if they're impacted, to be replaced. Yeah.
That answers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Lecueillier. Member Blatherwick.
I'm sorry?
Is your hand up, Member Blatherwick?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Mr. Telford, I'm looking at the application, and quite frankly, I have no problems with the use that's going to be established in this accessory building. But I think I'd like to add to our standard conditions an additional condition, 2 conditions actually, that we approve these variances for the life of the building. And the second one is that we approve these variances and conditional on that this use is never changed to a residential use. And my concerns, Mr. Telford, are that you're building a fairly large extension to a garage in the rear, and quite frankly, that building could be converted to a two-story coach house. And what the additional two conditions that I'm suggesting would do is make sure that this use stays as a garage and is not used for residential in the future. And if you don't have a problem with that, neither do I.
No, I agree. It's a limited, very limited use.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Blatherwick. I just do
Thank you,
have
Madam
one
Chair.
follow-on question then for our planner, Ms. Horn. So, Ms. Horn, if we were to impose a condition that the use be restricted to the one proposed by the application, so we've heard that the new zoning bylaw has just been adopted. What's the bylaw say about the potential eligibility or permissibility for someone to turn that into residential going forward? I just don't want to go counter to something that's just maybe been adopted. Just if you can enlighten us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would have to check just to see for this property specifically. Sorry, and your question is, could they turn it into a building into a coach house as of right, under the new zoning bylaw?
That's what I'm asking, yes. Okay, so I'll give you some time to do that. Member Blatherwick, did you have any further questions?
No, that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Member Haskin.
Sorry, an additional question for Ms. Horn. If this was to turn into a residential use, hypothetically, would it be considered an accessory structure still, or does it fall under a different definition?
Thank you for the question. It would count as a coach house.
And is that something that could happen today if, based on the new zoning bylaw?
From what I'm seeing, they would still need a minor variance to allow it to be converted into a coach house, from my understanding, because the height limit is 3.6.
I see, okay, and
meters.
this hasn't changed regardless. Okay, in other words, we can go ahead with those two conditions that are proposed by Member Blatherwick. Is all in favor, I guess? I'm not looking for a vote, I'm just looking for some concurrence here from members, if you're okay with adding that. And I'm just going to turn to our Deputy Secretary Treasurer. No issues with adding those either?
If that's the will of the committee, we can impose those conditions. We don't necessarily have standard wording for the limitation of the use. The application does make clear that it is for a garage. So we can have that reflected in the committee's decision.
As opposed to an additional condition to deal with the use, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's what I'm.
All right, so Member Blatherwick, are you so I'm sort of worried about how the enforceability of it longer term. So if it's very clear in the decision and, knowing that there are other avenues and processes that the city has, would you be okay with just ensuring that it is very clear in the decision that the approval is directly related to that use?
The intention is to limit the use.
Sorry, I'm waiting for an answer from Member Blatherwick.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, as long as the definition of garage does not allow for residential use, I'm fine with that.
All right, okay, thank you. But we are going to stick with the first condition proposed by Member Lothrick. Yes, Member Keklikan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question to the agent, please. You mentioned that there was consultation with the neighbors, the adjoining properties, I suppose. In those discussions, were there any concerns that they expressed with regard to the garage use as a hobby turning into a business in the future? Was there any concern expressed to that effect?
Yes, the intention is to never go beyond the intended use as a repair place for cars, an inspection for a personal car.
Okay, so that's the intended use. Okay,
And it will never be considered to be a coach house or any kind of a residential situation.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just to be clear, Mr. Telfer, what the committee is also getting at is not just the coach house. It's ensuring that there's no home-based business that arises out of this where maybe, you know, some of your clients' friends may come and have work done on their car or that. So that's what we're trying to avoid here as well, just to be very clear. And you can warrant that, you can confirm that that's completely not the intent.
It's completely a personal involvement with the owner with this structure.
All right, thank you. We just wanted to have that on the record and very clear, and it'll be reflected in the decision. So thank you for that. Okay, any other questions on this? No, all right, so I'm going to go to my speakers list. Don't believe I have anyone on here for this. No, is there anyone in the audience or either here in person or online who would like to address the committee on this application? Not seeing any, so at this point we can go to a vote. All those in favor? All right, for the record, the application is granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to the last application, which is for 374 MacArthur, looking for Agent Peking. Have we the agent?
Yes, Madam Chair, the agent's being brought forward.
Yes, hello. I'm guessing you're not Michelle Pequin. So if you'd like to give us your name, your address for the record, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
My name is Thekli Arvanitakis.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Having a problem. Just a minute.
Please come closer. My name is Thekli Arvanitakis. My address is 3836 Simone de Beauvoir, Laval, Quebec.
Okay, sorry, your full name again, please?
Yes, Thekli, 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 and my last name is Arvanitakis, Arvanitakis.
All right, thank you very much for that. That's helpful for our records. Who's with you? I see you've got somebody
Yes.
next to you. Will they also be speaking?
Yes, it's Michel Paquin. I believe his name is on the form. So we're business owners, we're partners, and he's also my husband. And we own the company that's going to Lexus Construction Canada, that's going to build and own long-term the building that we would like to build on McArthur.
All right, thank you. So the committee would like a full presentation on this. Have you submitted a PowerPoint presentation for us?
No, we haven't. We didn't have much time to prepare something because I didn't think we had to make a presentation, but I could talk to you briefly about the building and what our intentions are. Is that what you would like, or?
Yes, and if you could, so our understanding is there's quite a bit of a history as well with this application. Starts way back to where you had minor variances approved back in 2022, if I recall, and there's been extensions to the approval of the site plan, that kind of thing. So start from the beginning and sort of bring us to where we are today. And then you will need to address the 4 tests for the committee's consideration. Okay? Are you familiar with the 4 tests under the plan?
The architect had submitted it, and I think you have it in your file. I don't have it in hand right now, but I could access it. But you do have the 4 tests in your file. I'll just have to get I don't have it right here with me. But you had addressed
Okay,
them.
yeah, I
Yeah.
see we have them. I would have liked to sort of get your take on the planning rationale here for the proposal. But okay, so I'm gonna give you 5 minutes on the clock, but like I said, start from the beginning. Would you prefer to speak in French? Because that's an option as well.
Hi. So, je vais y aller en français, ça vous dérange pas?
Moi, ça ne me dérange pas. On a plusieurs membres sur le comité qui parlent français aussi, fait c'est à vous.
OK, parfait, ça va m'aider. C'est pour ça que j'avais demandé à Teki qu'elle soit avec moi. Elle se débrouille mieux en anglais, mais pour la présentation, je vais la faire. Nous avons acheté le terrain de l'ancien propriétaire il y a environ, je vous dirais, 1 an, jour pour jour, que le terrain il a été acheté. Le projet vous avait été présenté à l'époque en béton acier. Nous, on est un constructeur qui fait du bois-brique. Ça fait qu'on a pris l'année pour refaire les plans. On a renouvelé le site plan qui avait été approuvé à l'époque. On a pris l'année pour refaire les plans en bois-brique. Puis, pour vous resoumettre les nouveaux plans que vous avez en main présentement, les nouveaux plans permis. Le projet n'a pas changé pour ce qui en est des unités, la disposition des unités, le type de modèle, ces choses-là. Tout est essentiellement le même. L'extérieur est à 95%, je vous dirais, le même. C'est juste que le visuel, il ne donne pas cette impression-là, mais une fois bâti, ça va sortir de la même façon. On a des meilleurs visuels. J'ai vu que sur votre plan, on a un plus beau visuel qu'on pourrait vous envoyer que celui que vous avez sur le plan actuel. Il y en a qui ont été refaits par la suite. Le projet consiste en la construction de 64 unités de logement avec 10% de logements abordables, dont au niveau du rez-de-chaussée, c'est des stationnements qu'on retrouve. C'est un étage de stationnement avec une salle commune pour les locataires, où ce qui peuvent venir se retrouver, regarder la télévision, discuter entre eux. On a 44 espaces de vélos pour mettre les vélos. Chaque logement va être équipé d'un crochet pour que les gens puissent mettre également un vélo à l'intérieur de leur logement, plus 44 espaces de rangement vélo au niveau du rez-de-chaussée. La différence avec ce que vous aviez approuvé à l'époque, c'est que vous aviez 18 stationnements à l'époque et maintenant, on vous en propose 16. C'était 17. 17 à l'époque, maintenant, on vous en propose 16. Pourquoi? C'est que sur les plans à l'époque, les ingénieurs, ils avaient omis de faire les salles mécaniques pour Hydro-Ottawa. Il n'y avait pas de disposition pour les salles mécaniques d'Hydro-Ottawa. Ils avaient prévu qu'ils mettraient ça à l'extérieur sans avoir l'approbation d'Hydro-Ottawa. Puis Hydro-Ottawa, à cause de la disposition du bâtiment, refuse que ça soit à l'extérieur. On doit le faire à l'intérieur du bâtiment. Donc, ça nous oblige à faire une salle en dessous du bâtiment qui va contenir les salles mécaniques et les salles d'Hydro-Ottawa. En procédant de la sorte, il faut rajouter un escalier qui nous donne accès à cette salle-là. Puis cet escalier-là nous enlève, dans le fond, l'espace de stationnement dont nous avions à l'origine, les 17. Fait que là, on tombe à 16. Également, on a dû revoir, parce que les stationnements approuvés à l'époque n'étaient pas conformes. Il leur manquait quelques pouces, quelques centimètres là, pour être conformes à votre réglementation. Fait que les architectes ont pris le temps de revoir la trame de stationnement pour la mettre vraiment conforme à votre réglementation, ce qui fait qu'aujourd'hui, on vous en propose 16 avec on a 2 espaces pour les motos. Dans les 16 stationnements, on prévoit en garder 2 pour visiteurs, un pour voitures éco-partage et la balance va aller aux locataires.
Je vais vous arrêter là parce que d'après les dérogations qui sont demandées sur notre application, quand on regarde B, c'est pour permettre qu'il y ait, je pense que c'est un minimum qui est requis pour des espaces pour les visiteurs, là, je parle. 5 est requis, puis vous proposez 0. Là, vous venez de me parler de 2 espaces.
OK? Ouais, il va y avoir 2 espaces. C'est l'architecte qui a fait la demande de dérogation. Elle nous l'a envoyée, puis elle a été transférée sans révision. Fait que c'est des choses. C'est 2 visiteurs, un éco-partage et la balance en stationnement locataire.
En autre mot, 14 pour les locataires, puis 2 pour les visiteurs, c'est ça?
Oui, exactement, c'est ça.
Dans une minute, il va falloir que je fasse une traduction un peu, là, un sommaire de qu'est-ce que c'est que vous m'avez dit pour être certain que tout le monde a bien compris. Fait que, en anglais, alors, just for the other members, our speakers purchased the property a year ago and has since needed to revise the plans because their method of construction is wood construction as opposed to the previously proposed, I guess, cement construction. So 64 units are still proposed. That hasn't changed, 10% of which are to be for affordable housing. There are 44 bicycle spaces being proposed. The reason why we're looking at a reduction in the required parking spaces under variance A is because in the initial plans, there wasn't space dedicated in the basement, I'm taking it, for the mechanical room and to give hydro, auto, and electrical room. So, and there needs to be a staircase that gives access to that. So there has been, so that's why we're landing at 16 spaces. What's being proposed is 14 for the residents and 2 instead of 5 for visitors. Est-ce que j'ai bien capturé en sommaire?
Exact,
D'accord
c'est
avec
très
ça?
bon.
OK.
Une autre chose, il y avait, juste parce que c'est une bonne raison, les plans originaux, the original plans that were missing a few inches off of it, and that's what also affected the sizing, is what I understood as well.
Yes, exactly.
OK, c'est beau, on se comprend. Alors, il y a des choses que, si c'est bien ça, il faut faire un amendement à l'application. Donc, on peut faire, c'est pas un problème. Alors, ce qu'on ferait, ça serait pour la dérogation A, on changerait les mots pour dire to permit 14 espaces de stationnement où 26 sont requis. Puis pour B, on mettrait 2 va être fourni ou 5 est requis. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec ce changement-là, ces changements-là?
Oui.
OK, c'est beau. Je vais parler avec notre urbaniste, Ms. Horn. So we're looking at some variances to the, some changes to the variances to use more accurate wording. So we're looking at 14 instead of 26, and then 2 visitor parking spaces. I just want to get your input on that because you would have reviewed this proposal on the basis of 16 instead of 14 and 0. So your thoughts on that, please.
Ah oui, nous sommes agréables à ces changements, donc nous n'avons pas de problème avec ça.
C'est parfait, puis je viens de me rendre compte que vous parlez français, fait que c'est super. On ne savait même pas ça. OK, on a appris des choses. OK, dans ce cas-là, je vais demander si les membres du comité ont des questions. Il y a Member Lecueillier, c'est à votre tour.
Oui, juste veux savoir, maintenant que je sais qu'il y a 2 spots pour les visiteurs, y a-t-il la place pour des fois les bâtiments ont comme un car share. Est-ce qu'il y a aucun de ces stationnements qui sont comme pour une de ces compagnies qui ont les car share programmes, ou est-ce que c'est seulement pour les résidents du bâtiment? Est-ce que vous pouvez me répondre à ça en premier? Puis je crois que j'ai une autre question aussi.
Oui, Madame Lecuyer, dans les 14 stationnements, il y en a un qui va être dédié à l'éco-partage, au car share.
Parfait. Et puis, deuxièmement, j'ai pas vu une photo du bâtiment, mais si quelqu'un avait la livraison pour des épiceries ou un Uber Eats ou quelque chose comme ça, y a-t-il une place où c'est facile pour recevoir ces types de livraisons?
On a un accès sur le devant, l'élévation, près de l'élévation gauche, qui tombe directement dans un lobby
OK.
avec les boîtes aux lettres, puis il y a quand même un bon espace là. Ça fait que oui, les livraisons, tout va se faire par cet endroit-là, la réception des livraisons Amazon et Uber Eats, ces choses-là,
Oui,
oui.
OK. C'est que il y a un petit driveway, c'est pas les personnes sur comme McArthur est une rue très, très occupée. Alors, juste veux s'assurer que c'est quelque chose qui est pas sur la rue.
Ben, il va falloir qu'il stationne en avant du garage le temps qu'il fasse sa livraison puis qu'il ressorte.
OK. Oh, voilà. Merci. Il y a une photo maintenant. OK. Mais il y a une place où ils peuvent
Oui,
arrêter.
il n'est pas obligé de rester sur McArthur exactement, là.
OK. Je crois que j'ai entendu qu'il y a des unités pour les maisons abordables. Est-ce que c'est avec un programme fédéral ou provincial
C'est
ou
avec le
de la
programme
ville?
fédéral, oui.
OK. C'est beau. C'est mes questions. Merci.
Merci, Madame Mandacaille. Member Blatherwick, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions are to Ms. Horn. I note from the department's report that there was a transportation impact assessment study done for this particular project. Was a parking supply and demand survey part of the TIA exercise? And the reason I ask is because this building will be, if approved, will be in close proximity to Brant Street and Belial Street, which are residential streets close by, unsigned, which means 3 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can park all night, overnight between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., with the exception of obviously with snow situations in the city where you're not allowed to park overnight. So I'm just wondering, Ms. Horn, the transportation impact assessment study, did it look at parking supply and did it look at parking demand? I mean, what we're doing here is substantially reducing an already very minimal parking requirement for a 64-unit building.
So we had a transportation impact assessment.
I was asking the staff member for this,
Oh,
Ms. Horn.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Blatherwick. It was, parking was covered, at least partially by the transportation impact assessment, and as part of the analysis, they did look at trip generation, and at the time, they were proposing a very similar number of parking spaces. And so these change, and in 2021, the committee actually approved a variance to allow 13 spaces. And the proposal hasn't changed very much since then from our perspective.
However, Ms. Horn, the requirements for transportation impact assessments have since 2021. And you said that the parking demand was looked at partially. Exactly what does that mean?
So one of the things that they looked at was the parking availability on adjacent streets as well, but it did focus mostly on the trip generation and the other mode options. I'm
So
not
what
I'm
you're
not a
telling,
transportation planner,
it-
so I
Yeah,
can't
what-
speak to it in that much detail, but
Yeah.
it was,
okay, it would have been very useful if the department had bothered to forward the transportation impact assessment report to this committee. I mean, we're making a decision on substantially reducing parking at this location, and quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have enough information to make a decision. Thank you, Ms. Horn. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Member Blatherwick. Member Haskin.
Thank you. Additional question for Ms. Horn. Just for my understanding, if this was previously approved for 13 parking stalls, why is the application back to the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Haskin. That's a great question. So essentially, at the time, they weren't varying the visitor parking space rate at all. And so now that they're varying that, the additional variance is required. And usually variances are tied to plans, and through the change in ownership, the plans have changed slightly. And so for that reason, it seemed prudent for them to come in for both minor variances.
Okay, so previously it was, I guess, assumed there would be 13 resident stalls and additional 5 visitor stalls. Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, Member Blatherwick, do you have another question?
No, Madam Chair.
All
Sorry.
right, thank you. Okay, so I do have a question for you, Ms. Horn. We've heard now that we're looking at 13 spaces dedicated to the unit owners or the units, and 1 for an eco-share and 2 for visitor. What does the eco-share space, does that fall into a separate bucket under the zoning bylaw? Or how do we treat that?
If I could have 1 second to check the zoning bylaw, that'd be great.
And in the meantime, juste pour clarifier, c'est 14 et avec le 14, un de ces 14, c'est le co-sharing, ou est-ce que c'est 14 plus 1 et puis plus les 2 visiteurs? Juste Monsieur Paquin ou
C'est 14 incluant l'éco-partage.
c'était 14 incluant. OK, merci.
Fait que c'est ça qu'on essaie de déterminer, si sous le règlement de zonage, les définitions pour le type de stationnement, si c'est vraiment juste dirigé comme un stationnement est alloué à une unité, est-ce qu'un eco-share ou un co-share, un stationnement qui est uniquement pour c'est commun à tout le monde pourrait s'en servir. Est-ce que ça tombe dans une autre catégorie? C'est ça que j'essaie de déterminer parce que c'est important pour avoir les dérogations bien écrites. Il faut vraiment que ça soit précis. Il faut que ça soit selon la structure du règlement de zonage. Ça fait selon les définitions, tout ça. C'est pour ça que je vais m'assurer que quand on va faire, puis on va s'entendre sur les changements finaux, ça va être bien en ligne avec le règlement de zonage, puis comment il s'applique dans ces situations-là. Fait que c'est ça que j'essaie de déterminer. Madame Horn, avez-vous une réponse?
While it's a separate definition in the zoning bylaw, however, it doesn't seem like there are any specific provisions, like in terms of the parking rate itself.
Okay, so if I understand this, then the zoning bylaw doesn't require co-share spaces, period, anywhere. So if there's one provided, presumably it would have to be taken out of what would be a common use space including visitor or any, like, so that would all be one bucket. So in this case, what I think I'm hearing then is it's 13 spaces for the units with 3 visitor spaces, of which one could be a dedicated co-share space. Is that correct?
That seems correct, yeah.
OK. Monsieur Paquin, est-ce que vous avez compris là, comment est-ce qu'on va changer un peu le vocabulaire dans votre amendement ici, là, dans le changement qu'on va faire?
C'est parfait, oui.
OK, vous êtes d'accord. 13, fait que dérogation A, c'est 13 espaces. Puis là, on change B pour dire 3 espaces visiteurs, dont vous avez comme complètement la discrétion de déterminer qu'il y en a un que c'est pour du covoiturage ou je sais pas, c'est comme vous voulez, là, je ne sais pas comment ça s'appelle ça exactement, avec co-share ou eco-share. En tout cas, OK. Bon, mais dans ce cas-là, je vais demander aux membres, does any member have a concern with the changes proposed to the variances for the record? Okay. Okay, Member Keklikan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question pour Monsieur Paquin, s'il vous plaît. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous donner une idée de la proportion des unités dans le développement de 64 unités? C'est une chambre, 2 chambres à coucher. C'est quoi les proportions, s'il vous plaît?
C'est 45 une chambre à coucher et le reste qui représente 19 unités, 2 chambres à coucher.
OK. Merci.
Est-ce que les espaces de stationnement sont alloués aux unités avec 2 chambres à coucher? Comment est-ce que ça fonctionne, ça, pour vous?
Oui, pour nous, ça va de soi que ça va être les 2 chambres à coucher qui vont avoir accès, au stationnement intérieur.
OK. Autre question. Any other questions? Ah, Member Lecaillé.
Vous avez dit dans la demande, il y avait no unacceptable negative impacts, or we anticipate no unacceptable negative impacts. Pouvez-vous décrire le type de consultation que vous avez fait pour cette demande?
Oui, on s'est référé à l'étude de circulation qui a été faite quand on a acheté le terrain. Ça venait avec l'étude de circulation que vous avez en main, qui mentionne qu'il n'y a aucun trafic qui cherche à aller sur la rue, je crois que c'est la rue Brent, que vraiment la circulation se passe sur McArthur, que c'est une avenue principale, que la ville, c'est dans leur vision de développement de favoriser l'écopartage, de favoriser la mobilité par transport en commun, ces choses-là. Ça fait que c'est de là qu'on a, suite au rapport justement là, de Traffic Study, qu'on est arrivé avec les conclusions que ça n'avait pas d'impact sur le projet et sur la situation extérieure au projet, là, de réduire d'une case de stationnement. Là.
OK, merci.
OK. Madame Horn, j'ai vu que vous avez votre main levée.
Merci. I just wanted to expand on Mr. Blatherwick's question from earlier. So they did have a part of the TIA which had to do with parking supply, and it concluded that the spillover parking in the area resulting from the development of the site would likely not depend on street parking in the area, and therefore would not be a problem, mentioning, like the applicant said, that it's well served by OC Transpo with Route 14 traveling past the site and the bus stops at the Brant and McArthur intersection, and that it provides more bike parking than is required in the zoning bylaw.
All right, thank you for that. Juste pour clarifier, l'étude de circulation qui avait été faite, Ça n'a pas été mis à jour, hein, si j'ai bien compris. Fait que l'étude aurait été faite dans le temps que la proposition, c'était pour 16 espaces aux locataires, c'est ça, puis 5 pour les visiteurs.
C'est l'étude que l'ancien propriétaire avait.
Ouais, est-ce qu'elle s'adressait à nous, madame, la question?
Mais c'est pour savoir si vous avez fait des révisions au
Non,
rapport.
l'étude, elle n'a pas été remise à date avec les données actuelles. On est prêt, on a parti du moment que qu'on a acheté le terrain avec les études qu'on a à ce moment-là, puis on a développé le projet en fonction de ça.
OK, merci. Encore une autre question de M. Blatherwick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, Ms. Horn, since you're reading from the Transportation Impact Assessment Report, can that report be forwarded to the committee so that we can review it?
Yes, it can be.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. And I would suggest that in future, when these types of investigations are undertaken, that they also be forwarded to the members of the committee. I mean, we need all the information we need all the information necessary to make reasoned decisions. And this kind of report, as far as I'm concerned, is important to me, and I don't know about the other members, but important to me to make an informed decision. And I thank you for reading from that report and allaying some of my concerns. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Blatherwick. Okay, if the committee is done asking questions, we can go to the public portion. Alors, maintenant que le comité a eu la chance de demander des questions, j'ai une liste de intervenants pour cette application. Fait que j'ai 2 qui sont sur ma liste. Monsieur Costello, come on down. Just going to need your name and your address again, just for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Danny Castillo. I reside at 372 Brand Street. It is literally right next door to the proposed project. Main concern was really what Mr. Broderick, I believe, mentioned about the traffic. We've lived there for about 20 plus years, and for the committee not to have the information about the traffic committee stuff, investigation, is troublesome for me as well, because I've lived there, like I said, and I could tell you firsthand that next door we have a 16-unit complex that only has 3 parking spaces. They park there as well on Brand Street. We also have a pharmacy and a doctor office. They have their own parking space. However, it also overspills onto the streets. People that drop off their kids to the school as well park there. So it's quite congested already. I don't see how it's going to be feasible for these tenants that, how many, 64 units, I believe it is. I just don't see how it's going to work. It's already really bad to even just get out of my parking spot. So I'm really concerned about that.
Okay, so thank you for your submission. This application is also part of a site plan control process. Were you able to participate in that at all?
I have, the only thing I've gotten is this letters about today. I haven't seen any plans. I did see the plans from before. And in those plans, they were also talking about taking down trees on that property, between our properties, where I don't see why, because it'll just help shield, between the 2 buildings. If they take down those trees, which they've been there for a long time, we would have no privacy. They would literally be living right above us, breathing over us. And like I said, they have proposed a new plan, which I haven't seen either. So I don't mind if, the parking spaces were fine and taken care of. And if the trees were left alone, as in the property line. I know the city evolves and grows, but I'm just more opposed over the parking and in the new proposed plans.
All right, thank you. You've raised a couple of points that I think are worth just getting further information on. Ms. Horn, I'm back to you. So we heard from the applicants that this site plan process was sort of re-initiated. Would there have been a public portion attached to that site plan, that renewed site plan process and approval?
Thank you, Madam Tremblay. My colleague, Ms. Hamlin, is online and would like to answer the question about the recircular, the site plan extension aspect.
All right, thank you. We'd love to hear from your colleague.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. How are you, Ms. Hamlin?
Fine, thank you. So yes, I just wanted to give some background here. I'm quite familiar with this site. I was a planner on a site plan application that came in 2015 for this site. At that time, this site was had a very rundown house on the property. When I did the site plan at that time, I was familiar when there was public consultation for site plans. Many people commented on how they were happy to hear that it was going to be demolished, this rundown house, because there were vagrants living in there doing illegal activities, and there were rodents and that sort of thing. So that was 2015, and then the application did not proceed. In 2020, another site plan application came in, and it has had, just count here, 3 extensions. So I understand that's in part because there have been multiple times when the property has changed hands. So to answer your question, now we do not require a site plan to go through a public consultation process beyond what we do in Ottawa. It's not required under the Planning Act, I should say, but what we do in Ottawa is post information online. And to Mr. Blatherwick's comments about not having information available, this is a really unusual case in that there have been so many extensions that our DevApps page is not up to date with the 2020 information. I think the DevApps page expires after an application after a certain time frame, so 2020 is too far back. But we can certainly make the 2021 revised TIA available to the committee, and we could have done so in advance if that had been asked in advance.
And Ms. Hamlin, that revised 2021 report, just to be very, very clear, was looking at 13 parking spaces and 5 for residents and 5 for visitors?
No, it wasn't. Hang on just a second. Let me be clear on that. It was looking at 17 parking spaces, including 1 barrier-free space. And at that time, it would not have met the requirement for 31 parking spaces. So it was acknowledged at that time that there was a variance required. So it was 17, 12 for tenants, and 5 for visitors at that time.
Thank you for that. I think I'm even more confused than I've ever been, though, based on all the numbers. But that's okay. I think we're getting close to, I mean, what matters now is then what's actually being proposed by our applicants. But we just, need to have a little bit of context when it comes to some of the comments about that TIA and what it was in fact looking at. So, okay. Any members have questions for Ms. Hamlin? No? All right. Okay. In that case, thank you again. We're going to go. I think we've explored a number of your concerns about that.
I'm also concerned on I have no access. I don't know where to go look for this proposed plan, and just to double check to see if the property lines are actually Right.
So for the property lines, I would suggest you look at Geo Ottawa if that's of interest to you. But beyond that, it should be easily searchable on the city's web page to find that information. If you can't find it, then just touch base with our committee staff. They'll help you find that page with the material that you're looking for.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I have one other name on my list, looking for Fleming.
That's my wife. She's outside with my baby.
Oh,
She was she had some concerns also, but I pretty much met them all.
okay, well, thank you very much then, Mr. Costello. All right, is there anyone else in the audience or either in person or at home that would like to address the committee with this application? Okay, not seeing any. Monsieur Paquin, vous avez la chance de finir avec un sommaire ou c'est comme vous voulez procéder?
Non, oui, je prendrais peut-être juste une minute ou deux. Comme vous voyez, dans le fond, le plan original proposait 17 places de stationnement. Là, nous, on tombe à 16. Fait qu'on parle d'enlever une case de stationnement, mais on rajoute l'éco-partage, qui est beaucoup plus efficace que si on n'en a pas. Fait que dans le fond, je crois qu'on bonifie le projet avec notre case d'éco-partage versus qu'est-ce qu'on avait les 17 cases précédentes. Fait que avoir à choisir entre 16 avec éco-partage et 17 pas d'éco-partage, les 16, selon moi, c'est beaucoup plus avantageux pour les locataires, pour la circulation et pour l'ensemble du projet. En gros, c'est mes commentaires.
D'accord, merci pour ces commentaires. Là, juste avant que le comité prenne leur décision, je veux juste m'assurer que tout le monde est sur la même page. Alors, pour juste finir et pour le record du comité, dérogation A, maintenant, on change 16 à 13, puis dérogation B, on change 0 à 3. Vous êtes d'accord?
Oui.
OK, c'est beau. And dans ce cas-là, I think members of the committee, we are ready to take a vote. Is there anyone who would like to, for whatever reason, reserve, or would you like to take a vote? All right, I think we're ready to vote. Then all those in favor? Okay, for the record, there are 4 in favor. Member Blatherwick, I'm taking, oh, sorry. Sorry, Member Kecklicken, you are not in favor? No, okay. Member Blatherwick, you are not in favor, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so just to go through this again. The committee, so the application is granted because we have 3 members who have voted in support, and we have 2 dissents, and I'm going to get your reasons for dissents, please, individually. Starting with you, Member Kecklicken, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as I supported the comments also from my colleague, Member Blatherwick, about the parking, the transportation impact study. We don't have the information, what the assumptions are. And there were a lot of different changes to the site plan and the number of units and the parking based on that. So it was getting more confusing than clarifications would have helped. So I'm hesitant. I'm not 100% behind until I see the evidence and the facts.
So then in terms of the 4 tests, are we, I think I'm hearing that you don't believe you've found evidence to determine that it is minor in nature. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, any other tests maybe?
No,
No.
I think that's the impact on the community.
All right, thank you. Member Blatherwick, need your reasons for dissent, please.
I will mirror Member Kecklicken's comments. Without the transportation impact assessment study from 2021, I cannot, quite frankly, make a decision on this application. As far as I'm concerned, the minor variance test fails because of the the impact on the community. Good planning, good land use planning, quite frankly, should not create off-site impacts, negative externalities. And without the evidence needed for me to make a decision that this is not going to happen, I have to assume that this substantial reduction in parking is going to do exactly that. One concern I have is that when this TIA was done, that all it was looked at was parking supply on the local streets nearby this site. If you do a proper transportation impact assessment, you do parking supply and you do parking demand. You have to know what the situation is on the street. Quite frankly, Madam Chair, members of the committee, public streets are not parking lots. And that's what we've been treating public parking streets as for an awfully long time in the city of Ottawa. So I'm not in favor of this. I don't have a problem with putting 64 units on McArthur. I have no problems with quite frankly, with putting in the affordable housing. We need the housing, but we also need the parking. And I have to reference once again the 2022 Origin Destination Survey paid for by the City of Ottawa, the City of Gatineau, and the National Capital Commission, which the City of Ottawa has declared to be statistically significant. And in that report, it is very clear that in this area of the city, tenant households, quite frankly, 60 to 70% have a vehicle. So we're providing a significantly less than 70% of the required parking spaces in this building by only providing 13 resident and 3 visitor parking spaces. I'm glad to see there's some visitor parking spaces left, but it is not significant, and it's going to create problems in the neighborhood. Problems that are already identified by a resident. I mean, these are the people who know what's going on. Apparently, we don't at the city. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Member Blatherwick, for that. And with that, Monsieur Paquin, votre application est approuvée. Alors, bonne chance.
Merci.
Puis, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas là, de contacter la personnel de l'administration du comité de dérogation. Mais avec ça, vous allez avoir votre décision formelle dans le jour.
Merveilleux, merci beaucoup. Bonne journée à tous.
Merci beaucoup.
C'est-
Bon, with that, if there's no other business, we're going to consider the application adjourned. Thank you.